Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Gloucester School Committee's Building and Finance Subcommittee. Today is Wednesday, January 17th, 2024. The time is 5:06 p.m. We are meeting here in person at the Gloucester High School Library located at 32 Leslie O. Johnson Road in Gloucester, Mass. These meetings are recorded. Effective August 16, 2023, the public is welcome to attend in person. Alternatively, the public may attend through the Zoom link listed on the agenda. Meeting notices will reflect if the meeting is Zoom only. As the recent amendments to the open meeting law allows, this subcommittee may continue to hold meetings remotely. Please note the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. So we will start with introductions on this side of the table, please.
Hi, Chad Lummis, Superintendent.
Hi, Gary Frisch, CFO.
Evie Pasquarello, Assistant Superintendent. I'm Melissa Fred, School Committee.
William Melvin, School Committee.
Andrea from Gloucester Preschool Director.
Jody Genotti, Principal of Green Elementary.
Matt Fusco, Principal of East Veterans Elementary.
Dan Jewett, Principal of Plum Cove.
Selena Immel, Principal at West Parish.
Thank you. The first order of business is reports, deliberations, and discussions. Are we taking it order of the agenda, starting with preschool?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Preschool department budget priority presentation.
So I'll start off with a little intro and then we'll get into that, okay? All right, let me share my screen. So just gonna give a little background on just the presentations for tonight. And just on the budget process as a whole, because I've heard this before, but want to do it for the record. So the guiding principles for the FY25 budget development for the Gloucester Public Schools is first to have our budget developed in alignment with our 3-year plan for ongoing improvement. Just to remind everybody that the 4 priorities of that plan are deepen student belonging and engagement, strengthening instruction to better connecting general education and special education, strengthening social emotional learning and mental health support, and strengthening our special education through coordination of services and specialized instruction. Those 4 working together lead to deeper learning and higher student achievement, academic achievement. Okay, if you do some and not the others, you'll may get some results, but they've got to work together in concert. As we've been doing the last few years. We also have to build a budget based in the current fiscal realities. A couple of factors really impacting those are the significant increases in out-of-district tuition rates and special education costs, which we've been documenting both last year and this year. And a likely or possible reduction in state aid for previous years, and also the end of COVID relief funding. We obviously know what the end of COVID relief funding looks like. We don't yet know the state aid picture, but that should be coming to us in the next couple of weeks from the state. And then of course that impacts the local number of the city's number in terms of what they're granting schools for our budget. And then building budget based in current program realities. So just a couple examples, but we'll hear more about them tonight. The increase of students with complex needs, including learning and social emotional needs, ongoing investments in curriculum instruction, and particularly at Oakland as well. The budget calendar has been slightly updated. We might make an adjustment tonight as well. The budget priority presentations in blue is where we are right now. This is last week, January 9th. Today, January 17th, and next week, January 23rd. And then we'll be presenting the district budget overall, either the BNF committee next, or maybe the full school committee will talk about the calendar towards the end of the meeting. Okay. We have a Budget Central webpage for everyone to go to. It has the calendar, it'll have all the budget presentations. It's on our finance and operations webpage. There's a link to it at the bottom there. People can go to. As draft budgets, so as we put them up, draft budgets, also the prior year's budgets, and all the meeting packets from our BNF subcommittee. We are leading up to the February 13th, our we may be changing state to the 14th, we're talk about that later. But the first full presentation of the budget, and that'll be the draft budget total for FY 2025. And then significant pieces of that budget, including anticipated significant changes. And then certain costs like average tuition, certain offsets like circuit breaker, and then federal and state grant adjustments that we anticipate. Prior to that, though, we're here tonight to have our second round of budget priority presentations, something started 4 years ago when I first started as superintendent. And these folks will go over the areas of strength, the priorities for the school, for their priorities for the upcoming school year, the work they're already doing in those priorities, because we're not starting much new, but we're continuing a lot of great work. And then how to also further strengthen those priorities next year. Just a reminder to everybody that we don't talk, this isn't really a numbers conversation tonight. In fact, it's not at all. But it's laying out the work that our schools and departments see that needs to get done and therefore needs to be funded on some levels. Update the committee on the budget work done so far, which is what we've been doing. And then really provide the basis for the budget development. And also this is the start of the public component of the budget development process. So tonight, got Gloucester Preschool and the elementary schools, and then Amy Pascal will talk about curriculum instruction and parental development. So without further ado, Andrea Perella, our Gloucester Preschool Director.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me okay? Everything's good? All right, Ben, are you gonna click through the slides?
I will click whatever you tell me to do.
You can click.
I click, there we go.
All right. So just as Superintendent Lummis had said, we're going to start off with our areas of strength, our priorities that we are going to be focusing on or are focusing on, the work that we're doing, and how we're going to continue to strengthen those priorities. Thank you. So last year, my first time here presentation, we did talk about how the Gloucester Public Schools preschool had a very strong reputation in the community. When I came in, there were staff that had been there for 23 years, and there were community members who were well aware who the teachers were and who they wanted to educate their children. And there was a lot of interest in attending the programs. There was some need to lengthen the day in our program, so we did add that option of an 8:30 to 2:30 day this year through a pilot program, which added to the interest, and we are getting more interest in that type of a program in the preschool. The second thing is we have a very strong team approach. So at the preschool, we have a multidisciplinary team that works with all of the students in the program, specifically students who have been identified through IEPs, yet they're resources for all of the students who are enrolled in peers as well. And we have this year started to implement a CST type of a program for our peers that come into the program who have not yet been identified as having special needs, and just helping us identify if it's a developmental lag or if there's a need for an evaluation. And we're doing this through an RTI process. So taking steps towards an evaluation prior to going right to an evaluation for a preschooler at our building is something that we're implementing now with the people that we have in place in our building. We do have a continuum of services that we're really focused on making sure that we're meeting the kids where they're at, but also providing them services through the least restrictive environment. So just looking at the continuation of services that is available through the preschool. So if a child is identified as having needs as a services only child, making sure that we are providing that service either itinerantly going to the child care setting where they're parentally placed or as a walk-in student. And then looking at our children's needs and the amount of services they need as the intensity of their special education services increases. So we are continuing.
Sorry, could you just give an example of like a lower level of service or very defined service to something that might be more complex?
Sure. So the child came in for an evaluation, the parent has concerns over their language development. We evaluate them with speech and language pathologist, and they determine that there are some articulation delays that are developmentally inappropriate. Then they would receive speech and language services. In the least restrictive environment, that would mean that they were just coming into our building for half an hour or a week or twice a week for half an hour as a walk-in. Or if a parent has chosen to place that child at Pathways or Y, or Kindred Gardens, then we might send an SLP out there to work with the child on those needs. So that's keeping them in their parentally placed program and not taking them into a more restrictive environment, which the special education preschool program would be considered. Then we have students that would range all the way to, more intensely involved children on the autism spectrum who require possibly physical therapy, speech and language services up to 3 times a week for 30 minutes, occupational therapy in a smaller setting with more intense one-to-one or smaller group instruction throughout a longer day. So we are at 8:30 to 12:30 model. And we're working on building that program. We just recently hired our first RBT in the district to support that and help develop an ABA model at the preschool level.
RBT, acronym for,
Registered behavior technician.
should have known that.
Yeah. How you guys talk about that?
Sorry.
And how many kids are on that bus?
So right now there are 8.
Thank
Soon
you.
to be 9. So we're growing. And then another area that was already in place when I came into the preschool was just this implementation of curriculums that are going to be continued onto the kindergarten level. So preschool teachers had been consistently using lively letters with their children for pre-literacy skills. And then the social and emotional curriculum was second step, and that's in place. Preschool is implementing that, and then when it goes to the elementary level, I believe it's Trails, correct? That's carrying over. She does that whole group, and then she also works with kids in small groups if she feels like they need reinforcement or they might need specific skills honed in on. So the school adjustment counselor is implementing that. Going forward, we're going to receive professional developmental integrity for literacy skills as well as foundations, so that we're furthering the continuation of what we're doing onto the elementary level. And okay. All right. So I talked a little bit about the continuation of services. This year really specifically is working on that intensive needs special education program. Prior to the start of this year, I've not had the opportunity to really give it the attention that it needed, but it is the program within the district where we want to make sure that we're reaching those children and giving them the intervention services that they require to an extensive degree to help them make as much progress as they can while they're young, and then prepare them for their transition to kindergarten. And so that's why we went forward and we hired the RBT. So the RBT is kind of like a step between the BCBA, so the Board Certified Behavior Analyst who oversees the program, but she is out in the district doing tons and tons of work. So she'll come in and consult with the classroom teacher, paraprofessional, and the RBT about programming. And then the RBT is there to implement it and carry it through. She'll enter data, and then she can also change programs and consult with the BCBA. But it kind of gives us that opportunity to do that work without the BCBA being so intensely, I don't want to say not involved, because they are very involved, but so much like feet on the ground.
Yeah.
She has a lot of responsibilities throughout the district. So yes, the next one is data collection. So really just making sure that we're making appropriate decisions for students who need special education services and providing them the services that are appropriate to their needs. One consideration that we are going to be changing going forward after going through this for 1 year is age does matter. So prior to this year, it was more as though we were kind of looking at the student and what their needs were and placing them accordingly. Considering a longer day would be the most, involved program for the students with the greater needs. And a half a day would be something that would be more appropriate for the kids with less needs. But after going through this for a while now, kind of seeing that a child who's 3 years old may be more intensely involved, but they might still benefit from that half-day program. And really, it might be developmentally appropriate for them. So we are in the process of developing a rubric that's going to help us make these placement decisions, and we're adding age in as a factor. So we might see a little bit of shift in how that's going for services, and we're replacing children.
Can I ask why? Like why does the age matter? I mean, in that group, in the preschool group.
Yeah, so basically, when a child's 3 years old, that's when we would first evaluate.
Yeah.
And we can evaluate them up until they're 5 years old,
Yeah.
and we'd be servicing those kids. So the mindset prior to changing the shift was that if you have a child that requires less special education needs, they require less time in school. If they have more intense special education needs, they would require a longer day, so that they were there long enough to have, twice a week with the speech pathologist, 4 hours with the special education teacher, one-to-one with para, all of that. So that sounded like that was gonna be most appropriate for kids who are more intensely involved.
Right.
But what we're seeing is that some of our little friends, when they're turning 3, having them from 8:30 to 12:30 is really just too much.
Okay.
And, come 11 o'clock, they're
They're done.
maybe falling asleep
Shut
or
down.
they're tantruming and not really accessing the curriculum. So kind of shifting, and it's totally kid by kid, because there's some 3-year-olds that they're ready, 8:30 to 12:30, they can sit to 2:30, and there's some 5-year-olds. So really just kind of meeting them where they're at and how they're gonna actually get more and access more from the programs based on age. Just a piece of the
Just a
picture,
piece,
yeah, not the whole picture,
Thank you.
and definitely child specific.
When you say you're gonna make adjustments, Amy, you're gonna make them starting in the new year or the spring or what?
We've started to this year because it's just kind of popping up a little bit more than I had seen it last year, just seeing some kids that we would have said was definitely an 8:30 to 12:30 kiddo because they require a lot of support, but they're really not being able to access beyond 11. So because we have schedules that run from 8:30 to 11 and we have transportation available, we're able to adjust the schedules based on the kids' needs. If we do, like say next year, I don't know so much for this year, the decisions that we're making already halfway through the year. But see them able to access beyond 11, we could then increase the day, 12:30.
Yeah, and it's just a final question. I'm assuming the parents are involved in that discussion. Like, hey, we're gonna,
So these are kids on IEPs, so any child that is enrolled as a peer, parents decide their programming. They can say from 8 to 11, they can say till 12:30, they can offer to enter into the pilot program, but for kids on IEPs, it's us designing their program based on their needs with the parent input at an IEP. So last year I did talk to you about the grant, the CPPI grant, the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative. I believe when I was here, we had applied but had not yet received the funding. We have since received the funding and we applied for an amendment and we received additional funds. So to this point, we have received $660,000 through this grant to help support early childhood education and care for all of our students in Gloucester. Initially, right now, what we've done is we're working primarily with Pathways in the YMCA, and we applied for the first strand. There are 3. The first strand is just increasing access to special education services throughout so that students don't have to come to us if they're identified as having special education needs. They can stay in our partnered programs and receive their services there. So we started out last year with an early childhood teacher and an SLP and an OT. PT as needed, we haven't really seen the need, but we have access if we need it. We have added a paraprofessional who is a Gloucester Public School employee who stays at Pathways and the Y and supports the 4 CPPI classrooms there. And we are in the process of hiring an RBT, registered behavior technician.
you wrote it down.
To support those programs. And I'm also looking right now for a speech language pathologist assistant because that's really where that caseload is growing. So I can go on about that, but I should probably go to the next slide.
Yeah, I think so. Just to highlight one thing about the partnership grant is it is very expressly for increasing access for services. And it's helping us in a variety of ways. One is because we have real space issues at the preschool. It's hard to expand class size, or we can't add classrooms, right? So, but it's giving us the resources and also the ability to work with Pathways and the Y and what's the third one?
They're not official partners.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We just help them.
So we're providing services that students who are attending those need by law, okay? But we couldn't provide them there before. They have to come into our building or some, one of our buildings, that sort of stuff, so it's really helping quite a bit, and all the costs are covered by the grant, which is the crucial piece, because we couldn't do it without that. So,
Are we at capacity for a preschool program? Yeah,
I mean,
close.
very close,
Close.
yeah, yeah.
And did you say this grant, you got an extension on the grant, or did you?
So we applied, we were granted the initial 330, and then we applied for an amendment. And
Amendment.
actually, we're now in the process. It was just posted Tuesday. And we are going to apply for the 2 additional strands. And continue to grow the program.
Is that, so when
So
you
that'd be the third piece of it, the sort of third chunk.
Third installment.
We've had 2 installments so far, essentially, thanks to Andrew's leadership, and this would be for the next round.
And what's the time period for that? Or- Like,
So
was that all this year or did
yesterday?
last year and this year? Like, is it?
Last year.
So the original funds came in last April.
Okay.
And so whatever was posted yesterday, we'll find out in February, and that will run till the end of June.
Sorry.
We're giving you too many questions, Andrew. Just go, and I know it's not a numbers conversation, can any of that grant money, I'm assuming it can't go toward, I mean, we're getting into a lot of specialists now. First of all, I'm like, wow, there's not that many of them out there, so, but can any of that money go towards like salary those, paying those people?
It does.
It does, okay.
Like
So-
the para that's at the Y?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of the itinerant
Yeah.
staff that works outside of the building, that's grant funded
Okay.
positions. So like the benefit of having an RBT at Pathways in the YMCA, and then as we expand into other early childhood centers, is they'll be there coaching the staff and providing support. So when a child, looks as though they may have some learning issues or behavioral issues that would have then landed to us immediately as an evaluation, we will have staff there coaching and training people right in the programs so that they're able to work better with these children, keep them in their programs. So we really don't want like exclusionary tactics that we wish we had in the past. So really building capacity where parents are placing their kids based on their family needs. Pretty much what it comes down to for a lot of families in early childhood. So it's really helping us with referrals. We're seeing a decrease in referrals, and we're seeing more appropriate referrals come through. So maybe they'll take a look at a kiddo, and it would have looked at like a big global developmental evaluation, and now we're kind of like, no, we compare that down.
Yeah.
The behaviors because of this, we only need to look at this, and then we're doing an evaluation based on what the child really needs.
So that grant money is pretty important. I mean,
Yes. Yeah, used well, grant money is always really important.
Yeah.
This particular is something we weren't doing before and has expanded, as Andrew's describing, expanded our reach and our services and has multiple positive impacts both on those organizations. But also remember, all the students that we're talking about, no matter where they're going in preschool, come to our schools.
Yeah.
So it's also helpful to develop those support and service for those kids early on, and also the rest for the parents too.
So do we count them in our population at all?
No, not for,
We're providing services?
In terms, so any child,
Services,
yes,
yes.
if they are receiving special education services, then they
They
are
considered a Gloucester
yes.
Public School student?
Huh.
They may not, I don't know if they show up in our actual enrollment. They show up in
have-
services only, right?
Mhm.
You
So
know,
we are having them, they complete registration paperwork
Okay.
and they are assigned a SACID. So if that means that they're all.
So that 22% of the students that is on IEPs and special ed, they're part of that.
They're getting services?
Yes. they get
Yeah.
zeros.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
And they would have been part of that prior to, they just might not have been accessing this.
Right.
services.
Yeah.
So. that's good to know. So, I talked a little bit about curriculum, what we're already doing, which is the lively letters in the second step. We've had multiple supplemental curriculums that come to the preschool because it's just fun. So Wiggles and Giggles will come in and work on gross motor, curious creatures, Gloucester Maritime Touch Tanks. We partnered with Art Haven, Gloucester Police Department and the Fire Department and Backyard Growers. This past year, we did start a PTO and we've had multiple events. It's so much fun, Spring Carnival, Candy Bar Bingo, and this year we had a Polar Express event. the data collection analysis, we started implementing the Brigance evaluation tool when we were evaluating kids for the special education program. We're looking at purchasing the BB map for students who are potentially on the autism spectrum and using that to work with our children who are in the intensive needs program.
What was that called again?
The BB map. And I can't tell you that off the top of my head. We are working with our BCBA, specifically, we work with them in multiple programs, but we're really trying to build that intensive need program and getting support around collecting data so that we're making decisions about programming for the students in those programs that's most appropriate. And then the evaluation rubric we're in the process of developing and just considering how we're placing students and making decisions. And then the community partnerships, I talked about how that's already in place. We have already received that funding and we're going to apply to continue that work. And the state has said that there will be no more than $1 million granted to us this year. So hopefully we get to that $1 million mark. And if you're interested, it is all over the news right now. So if you Google CPI grant, lots of conversations are happening about it.
But no more than $1 million.
Not for us, not for but we can keep going.
Um,
So what we're going to continue to do is develop definitions for classrooms and exit criteria for placement. Looking at the curriculum, which I talked to you a little bit about. Continuing becoming better at our data collection and helping us make decisions and deepening our partnerships through the grant.
Any questions? I got a couple things to say. Any questions?
Comment, just that you're doing a wonderful job, we ran into a grandparent at the Y this weekend, grandson goes to the preschool. Couldn't have spoken more highly of the preschool. What we're doing. And just your presentation, outside of the nice colors.
I didn't know. If you were efficient.
Yes, because the dispensation of the colors that I granted.
We like those.
Fabulous job,
Good job.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Couple things to add, just one thing that came up, but just special education certification. Really need all our teachers at, because preschool, as you know, as I think you know, is a special education program. Integrated preschools and public school districts are always special education programs, that's how they're defined, that's the purpose and point, okay? So we need all of our teachers to be special education certified, they're not, they haven't been. So we're working on that, right?
Did we start that like 2 years ago?
He mentioned it 2 years ago, I started when Andrews come out, I mean, we gotta keep working on it, and we probably need to pay a little more attention to it. Okay, and really start pushing folks. And the other piece which came up a little bit is just space, space is a challenge. You know, and space is a challenge in a lot of ways, one, you know, we could add classrooms if we had them, okay? We could also have more flexibility on length of programs, you know. But also just in terms of the crowded nature of the building, you know, not only makes it difficult to provide some services, but it's sort of, how do I say this, sort of, when you're in a very full place, it sort of changes the culture to some degree, you know, or limits are, you know, just, it doesn't enhance the culture, put it that way. So that's some of the challenges we're facing. There are no easy answers to that. The CPBI grant helps with that, but we may look at possibly, you know, relocating a classroom or two to Pathway, something like that. Okay, possibly. We have to really look at the cost benefit of that in a major way, and wouldn't do it if there wasn't, you know, a real like cost neutral approach. We don't have the capacity to rent more space, but sometimes we do cost sharing. I've discussed that in very, you know, preliminary way with Pathways. So I just want to highlight those two things. Andrew raised them, but they are certainly, you know, something that Andrew thinks a lot about. Working with all that. Guys ready to move on?
Ready to move on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Now we have the four families. And what I typically do with them, I just get out of the way. So that's what we do. I'll take it. It's that.
I'll start. So,
There we go.
there we go. Someone's gonna be by the ones here. So, thank you. We're always happy to do this, talk, because it gives us a chance to sort of talk about the things we've been really working hard at with our staff, all year long. And again, start to look forward, to next year. So, and you'll see that we're extremely busy. And really doing some amazing work. So this is always one of our favorite presentations to do. So these will talk about them. Areas of strength, and then our priorities, and then the work we're already doing on those priorities and further strengthening our priorities. And if I may be so bold to say you'll be impressed. What's going on at elementaries for sure.
Can I go now?
You may go.
I'll take this. please.
Do this.
So
Yeah.
we have a lot of strengths at the elementary, as Mr. Fusco alluded to. We are very proud of the work we've done since I've been here and making the elementary program work as a singular program. We collaborate really well together. Our schools, when we were 5, collaborated well together. They continue to do so when we have, now that we are at 4 teams. Our coaches work really well together. Our teachers work really well together. And the tier 1 curriculum that we have has made us cohesive. So we've really focused on that high quality, consistent curriculum, and we're very excited to be fully implemented at this point with Wit and Wisdom. Everyone is using the same curriculum across K-5, which was challenging last year, but it's really great to have all of those things in place this year. And the professional development that's gone along with that, from building base to the coaches working together, all the teachers. This is the first time since before COVID that all teachers at a grade level have been meeting across the district together to implement programming, and it's been really important work. And then we've also had professional development that's allowed additional support for office hours for teachers to come together and play. So those pieces have really helped us implement our curriculum well. Jody, can I pass the next 2 bullets to you?
Sure. So in terms of coordinating our social emotional support, we've done a really nice job of increasing the school adjustment counselor and the school psychologist's ability to work together. And that credit really goes to Amy Cam, our director of mental health, in sort of pulling those folks together. So they are now regularly meeting on professional development days. They are often given professional development that is unique to their practice. They're given opportunities to talk and meet with each other, and occasionally to have experts come in so that they can share their problems of practice and sort of get feedback from one another or from the professionals that come from the community as well, to kind of enlighten them on different types of topics. So that's been really nice for them to have those resources and to be able to meet much more regularly with each other. We now have a strong focus on attendance. We talked about this last year. We'll talk about it again this year. We have attendance teams at every school, and we now have a district attendance team. So everybody gets together and aligns, you know, what's going well for some schools so that other schools can take some of those cues on and add those things to their buildings as well. And to kind of look at the patterns across the district as to, you know, where our success and where we still need to do some work with our students is. In terms of supporting all of our learners, we do this in many ways. Obviously, we have a strong intervention system, which relies heavily on the backs of our Title I staff. Our paraprofessionals are doing that work. We're working on supporting our EL learners. You're going to hear about some exciting new changes at the East Vets Elementary School that they're planning for. Once we can get through the access testing, which kind of has EL at a standstill for the moment because the students are testing. I'm very excited as the other building that has a large population of EL students to learn a little bit more about what they're doing and hopefully take from that and start implementing it at Beaman as well. But we have some really strong things in place in terms of translation. We have some great translators that are on staff regularly and in our buildings daily. So they're interacting with our families as they come into the building, they're making phone calls in person, especially when it's a complicated issue that needs a lot more conversation than something like language line, although it's there for us to get sort of an immediate phone call out to a parent to let them know about something, or if it's just logistical to coordinate a meeting. We have Kinvo now that's being used more widely than ever. That sort of started very much at the administrative level, but I'm happy to report is expanded into our teachers and our counselors' hands. As a matter of fact, in leadership today, we're even talking about hopefully extending that right through our transportation department. And it allows us to text from our computers to our parents, and they receive it in their first language. And it's been wildly popular, especially with our families that don't have English as their first language. I almost always get a response from all of them, where that's not always the case when it's a voicemail or an email. So that's been a really helpful piece as well.
When they text back, does it get translated?
Into our language, yeah,
Into English?
yes, yes, so it's really great.
Do you use Google Translate at all? I
We
learned
do
about that
use-
today. And I'm
We do
amazed by
use
what it does.
Google Translate,
Okay.
in the day-to-day, I'll be honest, right, on the fly, when somebody comes in the office, if one of the translators doesn't happen to be there, it's got that nice conversation piece.
Okay.
So I can have a conversation with a student and or a parent if I need to, depending on what the
I didn't
issue
know
is.
if parents to teacher could do that, like.
They do
email.
sometimes in a pinch, yeah. I mean, it's always nice to have that personal feature because some things don't
Absolutely.
translate quite the right way.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, our translators will often chuckle when we put something through that and they'll say, you don't say it like this. And then they give us a better way to say it. But in a pinch, it certainly can get a point across when you're trying to communicate with somebody.
And I'm sure you're aware, I mean, obviously you're aware, but we just had an attendance kind of update and numbers are a little bit more promising than
Yeah.
we anticipated, so that was really.
Well, we're hoping that's due to all our hard work. We've really been putting our heads together to think about ways to positively bring attendance into the forefront of everybody's thinking and to encourage students to want to be part of the school community every day.
I think the attendance teams and the new policy. Just let parents know, hey, 10%, you missed 10%, you're on the downslide.
Yes.
Figure something out.
Yes, and encourage them to work with us as partners.
Yeah.
And then, we have our child study teams, where we meet regularly as groups of teachers when a student isn't progressing in the way that we think that they should. And come up with what kinds of interventions can we use, take a look at that data every 6 weeks to make sure that they're progressing along the trajectory that we're hoping for. And if they're not, then we have a larger conversation about what else might be needed or whether it's time to refer to our special education team to have a deeper look at what's going on with them.
So our priorities have primarily stayed the same as last year. These slides should be pretty similar. We continue to focus on those big three things we talked about, the strong curriculum, attendance, and the supports for our students with diverse needs. So you'll see that they are very connected to our plan for ongoing improvement. And we continue to ensure that those things happen as we make these priorities.
So,
Sorry.
yeah.
I was just gonna ask a quick question. Response, a reaction to, first of all, Whitman Wisdom on a hire me, because I'm my biggest fan. The teachers across the district, elementary schools. Do they, is the response been positive and is, coming together as kind of a larger team must, you're all on the same page, so to speak. Has that been advantageous and helpful, would you say?
I think that primarily it's very, very positive. I would say K1 teachers probably think it's the biggest shift that they miss their centers a little bit, and I think they're still trying to figure out how to make that individualized instruction work, especially the teachers who haven't done a complete year yet and they're not in their second full year of teaching it. But once they get to year 2, it feels so much better. And you have to, trusting the process for anyone is hard, but especially K1 teachers.
A lot of our K1 teachers are in year 1.
Yeah.
Implementation.
They can share those concerns or anxieties or.
There's a few leaders that are in kindergarten, first grade that are ahead and they're very encouraging and we're just working through it. It's a heavy lift.
So, as Jody had said, moving on to priority two, is to continue our, keep our eye on attendance. And, I wasn't aware you guys were gonna get an attendance, update, so that's great. So you can see, over the last 2 years, we've had like a 16% increase in terms of looking at where kids were in January of 2022 versus, 2024 in terms of percentage of students that we have in the green with satisfactory attendance. That's up 16%, 9% over the last year. And again, that is recovering from the pandemic, and a lot of norms and expectations were changed at that time, and building back those expectations takes time. I think we're headed in the right direction, and at the same time, it requires a lot of focus and attention. And all of us do that at our building levels with our nurses and our counselors, and our secretaries, and really working very hard to understand why students are absent and promoting good school attendance.
Yeah, and what really interested me was this week I saw with the directives education couple out there, they're gonna put on a big public relations campaign for attendance. So I thought, wow, we're actually a little bit ahead of the curve on that, so good for us.
And we continue with our priorities in our supports for social emotional learning. Obviously, this has been a big push for a while. While it's always been present in our schools, you know, post-COVID, we've talked a lot in these meetings about how it's, you know, ever more clear that we need to really make sure that students are mentally healthy and able to learn or ready to learn when they come into our schools. So we continue to put a huge emphasis on that. We are also thinking about supports in EL and special education. Our English language learners, the population is bursting. Many of us are getting several new students a week. It's like no other year. This is my 7th year in Gloucester. It's like no other year I've ever experienced. There's often a rush in early September, and then sometimes mid-year, especially with those countries that are experiencing summertime. It's a natural time for them to move, even though it seems like it's the middle of our school year. And so you'll get, you know, January is not an unusual time to see an influx of students from other countries. But this year, right through since September, it's been nonstop weekly. Beeman is averaging like 2 to 3 students a week. And most of them are not native English speakers. So it's really become a top priority for us. I mean, it always has been, but to really think critically about how to, you know, keep our stamina to meet those rising numbers, and then think critically about the services that we are providing them and what else that we can do for them to make sure that they feel welcome in our buildings, to make sure that they are ready to be learning and getting what they need from us.
How are we doing with specifically to your schools and just speaking to a capacity in the classroom? I thought Beeman was bursting.
No,
Okay.
Beeman actually started low, believe it or not.
Okay.
My lowest year ever. We started at 280, first day of school, and I believe that we're up to like 304 now. So, I mean, when you think about that, though, you know, it's 20 something, but in a very short period of time, and they're just kind of trickling in. But we were lucky enough to start with relatively small class sizes of 14 and 15. So now they're creeping up to what we're used to.
So just to go back to what you asked about wit and wisdom, it is strong tier 1 instruction is really the core, and we talked about wit and wisdom over the years being about building core knowledge. While that is probably more tricky for our K1 teachers, what they've really embraced in its year 2 for them is the compilation of Haggerty Foundations and GEOs and those decodable phonics texts, which has been really their focus, is that top part of Scarborough's rope that we've talked about. Those are the pieces where they feel comfortable and they feel like their kids need that work. And so splitting it evenly between building knowledge and breaking the code or the foundational skills has been a little bit trickier, but those pieces, it's almost 4 programs at K1 that they're working with. And those 4 together are working really well. And then continuing with our math work and our bus for science, and then math and data meetings. The literacy and math data meetings and common planning time, all of those pieces together have really helped us really focus on tier one, and then knowing what to do to support students in tier two or tier three, which is the special education sometimes, and sometimes just kids who really need intensive work. And so we've continued, we will continue to have those areas really be our top focus across next year.
So I'm going back to attendance and continuing the work that we're doing, as I mentioned, our attendance teams. We have a new family engagement coordinator this year who's doing a really nice job, and somebody that we have the opportunity to partner with. And I guess I'd just say to that third bullet that you know, it's about raising expectations, working with all families, but then we have a group that really struggling, that are kind of in that red severe attendance, and our family engagement coordinator can really help partner with that, but it is again, headed in the right direction, but it's labor intensive in terms of really partnering with families to take the steps in the right direction. And some of that can get hidden in the data, in the sense that if you're absent 18 days, you're chronically absent. But, you know, in terms of what is a reasonable goal, if you were absent last year 40 days, you know, and the goal should be 20 days. You know, it's about not going from 40 to 0, but how do you set reasonable expectations, work with people to make it feel manageable.
I just want to ask a question on attendance.
It's not an attendance officer, that's a role we've had for many years. It was more sort of court related, that's what it's, it's become more proactive. Just like our attendance policy has as well, so that role has shifted, but it's the same position we've had for all, just a different, we've had a couple of people in it last year, and Carmen Casio is in it now. Is really strong, they're big help.
So are we filing VSR, student requiring assistance applications, if it gets to a certain level, or are we trying to avoid going to court and say no? Like, is that a common practice still? It used to be, I don't know if it is anymore.
So it's, I wouldn't say it's did you want to answer?
No, I was just gonna say same thing. It's not common.
Okay,
You know, it's only after lots and lots of outreach from
right.
myself, the teachers, Carmen, all of us working together. So it's not something we just go right to.
Right, no, I didn't
Like,
expect
based
that.
on
Like tier
diversity.
one and tier two, like our tier
Yeah.
one for attendance is our incentives and our messaging. Our tier two might be working with families and having Carmen reach out, or this adjustment counselor or something. A CRA really would, tier three, it would be a last resort.
Yeah.
So is it common practice? Probably no, but is it off the table? No, it's still on the
Okay.
table.
That's good to know that the policy's working if we're not at that stage, right? So that's what I was trying to get to. That's helpful, thank you.
No, I think we questions.
So just continuing to talk about those supports, in terms of our social emotional learners, I talked a little bit about how we're collaborating a lot more at the district level, but also in the buildings too. Several years back, we were able to implement common planning time for all of our teachers. And one of the things specifically at Beaman that we do is once a month, that common planning time is devoted to we call it counselor consult. So we have classroom teachers, we have special education teachers, we have paraprofessionals all meeting together with the counselors to review kids that we know are on somebody's caseload because we're watching them. They may have a behavior plan, so we're talking through the logistics of that. Is it working? Is it not working? Is there something that we need to change? But also just making sure that classroom teachers are feeling supported with the kinds of things that they're presented with behaviorally in a classroom with people that have greater expertise that can kind of give some feedback and some ideas for next steps. So making sure that collaboration comes all the way down to teachers in the classroom and the folks that are the specialists within the building. We're prioritizing social skills lessons. Last year, I talked a little bit about the introduction of trails. That started out very simply with just counselors working either one-to-one with a student that might be on their caseload that they see, or a small group at a lunch bunch type of counseling session, and has now progressed to doing some whole group lessons and getting out there into our grade levels and giving them those skills and that common language and exposure to that program. We're also building our expectations in our building. All of our buildings have some sort of format for giving children what are the expectations of the building, no matter where they are, whether they're on the playground, in the cafeteria, or in a classroom, that there's a core set of expectations that everyone is looking for from them, and then having that be very visual to them so that they can articulate what those expectations are. And my best example of that is recently, obviously merging the two elementary schools. Matt Fusco was tasked with sort of figuring out what that would look like for the new building, and he came up with this great program. It's an acronym called SHARKS, and each one of the letters obviously has an expectation. And they formed a committee to talk about it, and they've thoughtfully rolled it out to students in, each month, really focusing on one of those traits and teaching children explicitly what that is and what that looks like if you're meeting that expectation. So that when you talk to the students of these veterans, they can really speak to those expectations and what SHARKS means to them. And I believe there's a pretty nice reward system that goes along with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah,
It was-
well, that's my best
It was an
example.
idea that she had done, so she was part of our group to get us started. So I do want to give.
But Matt always takes it to the next level, and he did. It's awesome.
Thank you.
If I spelled shocks wrong, can you just still tell me what it means? I mean, the acronym. It's an acronym.
Off the top of my head, no, but. I should put me on the spot, but I could send it to you.
Yeah,
But it is a list of expectations that we expect, being engaged learners, kindness, taking care of others, empathy, integrity. So we talk about each of those at our group meetings, what those mean. And then we have expectations for all the new areas of our building, how you act when you're in the Curiosity Commons, how you are in the gymnasium, the art room, all those public areas too. So, yeah, it was really, that was one of the nice things about opening up a brand new building, was we could really start from scratch.
Beautiful posters. I always see
Yes,
them when I
nice
walk in.
posters, yeah, and everything else.
Can you tell me, hearing all these services, right, that seems to be the way of the world, I just had this conversation at work today about how it seems to be morphing into social services as opposed to the legal part that we usually focus on. Like, I should have got a social service degree instead. So if I was to walk into an elementary classroom, regardless of what school it is, what am I gonna see typically? Like, am I gonna see one para, two paras, a behavioral specialist in there, or is that a pullout? Like, if I walked into a classroom, what?
I
Can
think
I
most
see first
classrooms
service
probably,
In addition to the teacher?
many classrooms have paras. I
Yeah.
can't say that every single classroom
Yeah.
you walked in would have one, because some float, between the different classrooms at a
And
grade
paras are there
level.
for special needs, usually.
Yes, and then sometimes they can function as interventionists
Okay,
with some of that
yeah.
small group instruction. There's behavior paras that you might see,
Yeah.
so you might see somebody talking quietly with a staff member or on a walk. There's resource rooms available, so a breakout space for students to go that need kind of some quiet brain break stuff going on. But you'll also see, community counselors in our buildings. I was gonna talk about that in one of our upcoming
And
slides.
they go into the classrooms, it's not a breakout?
No, they're often in a
both.
breakout space, so they might be in an office or a more private
Yeah.
space within the building, but you'll see children being able to access them within their day, rather than parents sort of having to figure out how to get them to a
Exactly.
session
Yeah.
after school. In terms of our adjustment counselors, especially at lunchtime, you would see some pretty robust, we call them lunch bunches,
Yeah.
but it's really about social skills learning. So you'll see a small group of students, and they might be talking through an issue, they might be playing a game or talking through like a scenario about taking turns or how to express yourself to somebody appropriately if something's frustrating you. So you'll see a lot of that. Obviously, you'll see some speech going on. Yeah, so that's, it's like a lot of little silos of learning in different ways. Sometimes it's academic, sometimes it's social emotional, sometimes it's learning English, but sort of going on in multiple kind of small groups.
I would just piggyback on that to say, I think from the time when we were in school to today, it's just amazing how many people are involved in a child's life. And it's more than just a teacher and I think you see just really wonderful relationships. Some might be closer to the para or the teacher. A lot of our classrooms platoon, so they switch halfway through the day. And they have two main classroom teachers, but from our counselors and psychologists to speech and language, there's just to our interventionists. There's just a lot of people who really, I think, make a meaningful connection and also in some ways break up the day. And again, all these things about trying to give each child what they need and each of those kids, it's different. And so, you know, a lot of our kids have slightly different days because of that.
That's impressive.
That is.
I think honestly, you'd be surprised at how much we are involved with students. I think if you think back to our days of school, all being of a similar age, you know, we joke sometimes. I don't know that I knew where the principal's office was or really who he was, right, when he walked through the buildings, whereas I know I'm always interacting, and when I speak to my colleagues on the phone or stop by their schools, there's almost always somebody sitting there. Not because necessarily they're in trouble, but we're always interacting, and I think that we're very visible in our schools and approachable, so the students feel really comfortable. You know, gone are the days of being in a panic. I mean, I have some that kind of roll right in and lounge and, you know, aren't really intimidated about being there at all. And I see that as a good thing.
Mr. Melvin didn't have any problem finding the principal. Let me just say that. You know, my other statement was kind of follow up on what Melissa said. Expectations, parents. So the parents have an idea, hey, this is what's expected.
Yes, oh yeah, everything has been made public, at least from these veterans, we made all that public as we rolled through the opening. So, yeah, no, I've been brought up at parent nights and everything, so, yeah. All right, so English language learners, the English language learners population is, I've been here 10 years, it's absolutely exploded. These veterans now has over 100 students that are English language learners. Over 40 of them are newcomers. And Jody, I know your school.
We're up to 64.
64 now, so it brings with it really brings some challenges, but it also adds just so much to our schools. These students are they're the bravest kids I know. And how they come into a school, they don't speak the language, and you can watch in 5 years and they leave 5 or 6 years and they leave us and they're speaking English fluently and ready to go on to middle school. Probably one of the most amazing things in education, I think. So anyways, so we're really working hard with our staff to handle this influx. And it takes place on all different fronts. So it's engagement with the families. It's making everyone feel welcome at our schools. And then it's the work that's done in the classroom to make sure that these kids are engaged and they're not just falling through the cracks. So all of our teachers over the last several years have had to take sheltered English instruction courses. So that taught us, teaches every teacher how to have certain strategies on working with having students in the classroom that don't understand the language, but still getting them to access it. And so, you know, that's been like a real help, but it's happened over so many years. You know, some of those skills get lost a little bit. So it's up to us as principals and EL staff to keep bringing those skills back to the teachers so that they can use them in the classroom. So we're doing that. Our own curriculum, Wisdom, has certain portions of that curriculum that reach out to students that are learning English. And so doesn't the Math and Focus as well, so that math can be a universal language in itself, but explaining it is a whole different thing. So there's things within both those curricula. We were thoughtful about that when we took on these curricula, that they address that. So we have that as well. Those strategies are in there. Family outreach to our ELs has really increased. I think, you know, opening up the new school we had to be very mindful about making sure that there was a lot to learn. Not only just showing up on the first day, but what it's like to go through the queue, the line for pickup, and how do we make sure that, you know, you've got everything you need to start the school off right? So all of us do, I think, an excellent job of reaching out to our families. We talked about language line, we talked about access to interpreters. We've had English language parents in for coffee and tea. All of us have had meetings with them, so that's really just a whole big part of it. And you know, these are families where you know, trying to make their way in our country and try and stay employed and do all that. So you know, we want to be a help, not a hindrance.
How is that queue working? Or what's
Oh,
the
dismissal has been excellent.
Traffic is
We've
good.
got it down to, cars are only out on Webster Street, I would say, for less than 2 or 3 minutes. So they're almost all inside our compound.
Does it back up to Easton Ave?
There, no, not at all. We're done with dismissal in, our record is 13 minutes. I believe we are watching that.
Yeah.
But we average 15 minutes a day, and arrival's been moving on, even with the rough weather.
Yeah.
I've been out there observing, so it's been pretty good. So hasn't turned out to be the issue that we.
How's West Parish doing there?
Good.
Getting better than we were years ago?
Oh, yeah. We, the buses have been a huge help this year. Most days, we have our buses out by 3:08. And 3:11 to 3:13 is when we're done with the pickup line.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been our best year.
Because that's what we hear about, you know, we hear about lines of busing.
We are still on Concord Street, but we're done.
Yeah.
And for comparison, Plum Cove being the smallest, it still takes us 13 minutes to empty out.
Yeah, I would say that's an average dismissal.
We don't hear about your traffic. We hear about there.
No, that's my point, which is that
That's on
the
why
only
you hear
the
about
only short
that.
you can make it, you know,
Yeah.
like,
You have a tough turnover there. The busing.
Yeah.
And
I would recommend that any school you build, I would recommend that you have the separate bus pickup is just fantastic. It is a game changer to have a separate
Yeah.
bus line. Bus drivers love it.
Yeah.
It really just gets the kids in and out where buses roll.
It's
Really
great.
great out of there. And then just lastly, just sort of to give an example, we're working on a program to assist our newcomer students. So newcomer students are kids that are right here to the country. Their English language is they're still picking it up. So it's still a difficulty for them. So this is the kind of idea that, you know, principals love to see. Came from the teachers, came from my EL teacher, Katina Tibbetts, an idea that she had sort of piloted a little bit over the summer. And so basically, what we're going to do is pull students in grades 1 and 2. They're gonna be broken, and then 3, 4, and 5 are gonna be broken up into 2 groups of these newcomer learners. And they'll spend a good part of their day with an EL teacher plus Rosalie De Silva, who's what do we call her? A tutor. So she's a Portuguese speaking tutor. And she'll be working 3 days a week with these kids as well. So they'll be out of the classroom. There's gonna be rotation stations. We're gonna have Title I help in there. It's just gonna be really focused learning to really help them so that, and then they'll spend the other half of their day back in their classroom with their teachers and making those connections with their fellow classmates, with their teachers, seeing the flow of the school and everything else. So we're really excited about this. We're gonna start this early February, so after we're done with the access
So
test.
can I ask you a question similar to what I asked? So, I'm a new student, I'm in 2nd grade, I come from Portugal.
Yeah,
And I will go to school for the first day, not knowing a word of English. What am I doing?
yeah, so
Like
what we really.
classroom immediately,
Yeah.
or like, how does that
Well, we
work?
do try to get them down, and luckily, like, at East Veterans, we have students who speak the language, so if the child's from Brazil, there's lots of Brazilian kids that
But
will.
what if it's like a
help.
language that it's not common, say it's
Well,
Venezuelan?
yeah, well, we usually try to make sure that they're connected with, we have 3 EL teachers
Okay,
who are so valuable
yeah,
at our school. So usually the EL teacher will make sure that they're very connected to that child for the first.
because they're
few
not
days.
understanding anything that's going on in
Yeah.
the classroom, right? So what is that like?
Well,
Yeah.
you'd be amazed at
The
first, the bravery, I
Okay.
always say, kids are so brave. And then just how they watch, you know, and they
Yeah.
watch and they pick up, and the other kids are amazing at, you know, you'll see them at lunch and they
Trying to help.
talk with their hands and, you know, and we really preach that at school, you know, I'll say to the kids, you know, he doesn't speak our language, you know, what's that, you know, how are we gonna be able to help them? And so, it's amazing how quick they assimilate into the classroom, within a day or two. I mean, it's rare that I see a child have difficulty after more than 2 or 3 days.
Really?
Following what's going on. Oh, yeah, it's,
Love to
you know,
see that.
they,
So cool.
you know, recess is, I always say recess is like the universal language, you know, play is fantastic, you know, and
Yeah.
you can get it, and then there's art, and there's phys ed and singing, and all those things that anyone can do, you know, so and that's part of their day, that's part of their
Right.
day, so they really, it's really quite amazing, like I said, it's an amazing place.
That's awesome.
I would trade my ELs for anything.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but is the EL population above 11-12%?
No, it's above 10% for the first time in Gloucester's history. And, you know, and so that was in October, so it's still growing, obviously. But yeah, we've been growing, except for last year, we're growing about 10% more each year. 10%, you know, from the previous year. You know, yeah, but this is, yeah, it's just what.
I had 7 students at Veterans when I started 10 years ago.
How many do
So,
you have? Over 100 now?
over 100, that's 2 schools, but I don't think East Gloucester has that
Gloucester
many,
didn't have.
Yeah,
that many anyways, so.
well, you are on 40 Hill. I
Yeah.
can say that because I grew up there.
Yeah, I am,
I mean, I think that's one of my biggest concerns is finding the people that can help those students.
Yeah.
We're all on trees out there. Might have to get a little creative when it comes to how we're gonna bridge that gap. I don't know what that looks like, you know.
We just got the money, I'm ready to announce the details of it, but yeah, we
No, part of the, I mean, this is, again.
brand new.
Right, but one of the things we've been trying to pull off, put together, I should say, is we have a parents pipeline.
A what?
Parents to parents.
Oh, parents.
Help parents become parents, and, you know, and our employees, staff, and colleagues. And the real motivation behind that is to just get to more staff who represent our diverse population,
Right.
particularly, you know, language diversity. You know, so that's again, you know, we've been trying to put together, we think we have an ability to start it, you know, relatively soon, but that's one way to think of it, because we have, you know, while we're still a ways where we want to be, have definitely increased, you know, our multilingual staff members. I mean, from very, very small numbers to some numbers, okay, I don't want to overstate this, as well as folks have described our ability to, you know, translators and other tools like language line, so that's increased a lot in the last 4 years. But still have ways to go.
One happy rendition of a story is we have actually a custodian in the district who floats to many of our buildings. He started here at Gloucester High School as a newcomer when he was in 9th grade. And came right up the ranks, graduated from Gloucester High School, now is one of our custodial staff. And he is from, I believe he's from the Dominican, speaks Spanish, obviously, and loves to talk to our newcomer students that speak Spanish and welcomes them. And believe me, I've used him in a pinch, you know, when somebody's really upset in the office and I'm not getting it. And if Daniel's in the building that day, we go and find him and he's so good. Gets right down on their level, on his knees and kind of converses with them and consoles them if they're upset about something and then makes sure that they get what they need. So
That's great.
it's kind of a happy story of using one of our own.
Yeah. Wow. Should showcase him somehow.
Yeah, we should. He's awesome.
Yeah.
And I always say to the students, I'm like, you speak 2 languages, like you're gonna, like, the
Right.
world is your oyster, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna do just great, you know?
Just a quick comment. Is that it? Is that the final slide?
That's the final slide.
Just, I had the opportunity to be in a lot of other districts, work in another district, and I'll do your review, but I couldn't build you people up any more than I do. So,
Thank you.
Great job you do, and, I always sell our elementary schools, great. Tremendous elementary school, great place to start. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
One of the things that I'm struck with always is alignment. You know, and that's across elementary schools and then not building connections further from preschool and elementary. You'll see next week, you know, we have a growing collaboration between high school, middle school, and alignment there. So not only across schools, but also alignment to district and schools. You know, I think the things you've heard tonight are things you've heard before. And that's by design, purposeful, you know, but just to point out that alignment does not happen every place. It's one of the huge strengths that I know these 4 or 5 folks really deeply appreciate. And that's their work. I mean, that's how they work. That's to their credit. But that alignment is not common.
I remember years ago, Greg Bach brought the term to us, curriculum mapping. And that's how we first heard and started about getting all the elementary schools in sync with the same curriculum, because that back in 2010. Each school was doing their own curriculums, doing their own teaching and learning in a different way. It was a priority to have curriculum mapping. And we're like, wow, that's an idea. Now look at us now. Impressive.
All set? I said, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
You gonna stick around or you gonna take off?
What is?
We appreciate all your energy and all your work and staying here late. You're welcome to go. You can hang around and watch Amy Pascal if you like, but she has said it's okay if you leave.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, folks. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All your work. Shit.
Oh, yeah, because that might be like.
Yeah.
Maybe. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Linda.
Great job. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Melvin.
Okay, so on the agenda, curriculum instruction was listed separately from professional development, but I put them together in one slideshow. Because they all kind of come together. Our professional development should support our curriculum and instruction. So tonight I'll talk, just like everybody else has, about our areas of strength, our priorities for next year, the work we're already doing, and how we are working to further strengthen our priorities. I am adding a topic of our professional learning, the intention and approach, because it's very thoughtful, and I want to make sure that you're aware of how we go about it. So our strengths for curriculum and instruction and professional development, our tier 1 instruction is coming right along. You know, elementary, we have felt that we've been at that place for a while. We've talked about that with Wit and Wisdom. We have now completed a pilot and adoption at the middle school of both ELA program and math program. And at the high school, we have strengthened our instructional model through the culturally responsive teaching. So our curriculum, our tier 1 curriculum, I feel is becoming a strength where it wasn't necessarily in the past. Just an anecdote of that Katie Provo and I run a committee that are connecting regular education and special education, and we are in the midst of doing a self-assessment of our MTSS model. Those are the interventions that the model we have in the district. And every group that was kind of diving into it had commented how they felt they had a strong feel within the district of what tier 1 was and how to implement it. So that's good. We're not done, but it's really it's nice to hear that we're making a step in the right direction from pre-K to 12. Our instructional coaching model is also a strength, particularly at the elementary level. I also can't speak highly enough about Kate Robertson at the middle school, bringing in that instructional layer. It's tremendous. Mike Titus is also coming to us with a very strong instructional background. So the two of them, working with them is a joy because they are talking about instructional practice. And that hasn't been something that's been a big focus at O'Malley. So it is so nice to see and refreshing. So that's our strength. We have done curriculum reviews in secondary education, middle and high school, and we're making some nice progress there. Was in a meeting yesterday, bringing our math teachers at the high school together with our math leaders and Kate Robertson at the middle school, and looking at the impacts of the new curriculum at the middle school and how does that affect Algebra 1 and going into geometry, and our recommendations connecting the two, bridging math from middle to high.
Can you tell me again, Kate Robinson's title is what?
She's a curriculum coordinator at O'Malley, yeah. But to have those conversations, and then I was here earlier today and bumped into a math teacher, and he was literally jumping for joy saying, I'm so excited we're talking about vertical alignment of math, like not just in the silo of the building, and how does the math in middle school affect math in high school, and building multiple bridges for students to succeed in many ways. So the curriculum reviews have been very fulfilling in that manner. And I feel that professional development is a strength here. We give choice and voice. Teachers are able to, have a say in what they're choosing, what they need for their own professional development. But then we also have a very clear focus on the direction that the district is going with our plan for ongoing improvement, and we ensure that we provide supports to help teachers and to get there. So I feel that professional development is strong here as well.
So you don't get any complaints, or I should say,
Well, there's always complaints.
There's always complaints, exactly. So it's, of your opinion, you feel the teachers and the teaching staff feel supported here through?
Well, we're
PD.
all at different stages.
Yeah.
I'll use the November full day professional development day as an example, right? Preschool through middle school has been doing that model for years.
Okay.
And I would say they very much enjoy stepping up and leading sessions and being part of it and choosing. In high school, it was their first year, and there were some, as with anything new, some teachers jumped right on board and were leading sessions. It really was wonderful. I watched through the automotive shop, and somebody said it really feels great to teach adults, and they had that feeling, and it is great. But then, it's also new at the high school, and we had a very low number that signed up initially, percentage-wise. We got them to sign up eventually, but it's changed.
Right.
So they might not feel their voice is there yet, but we're working in that direction. Yep. Are you in charge?
No, no, you were,
Oh, okay.
you were.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was waiting. All right, so our priorities, curriculum, continuously looking at curriculum, but also to ongoing review and selection training. Buying a curriculum is great, adopting a curriculum is great, but making sure that it is rigorous and it is engaging students is really the important work. So once we adopt curriculums and embed them into our culture here and fully train staff on how to use them, to continuously review and make sure that they're standards. That's something definitely a priority. Instruction, instructional practices and strategies is always going to be a priority, at least from my department. You know, they talked about SEI strategies in the elementary, we're doing that all throughout. Just basic, what's a good lesson look like? What does the flow of a lesson look like? I've had meetings, this week with both middle and high school about what does that look like in a classroom? So Melissa, you talk about when I walk into a classroom, what would I see? Right? And so you're gonna see different things in different places. And so I am starting with middle and high, the conversation of what do we see when we walk into a middle school classroom or high school classroom? And actually, prior to this meeting, the excitement of Principal Cook was saying, you want to have a thought partner with the middle school and to kind of, wouldn't it be great to have, this is what instruction looks like in Gloucester Public Schools. So that's a long-term vision, but to always focus on instruction and the engagement strategies, whether it's through Wit and Wisdom or Amplified Desmos, they all have different ways of engaging students into making sure that we're providing rigorous curriculum. So there's a focus there, a priority. And then professional development, although I did say I feel it's a strength, I don't think professional development is something that we just stop doing. Yeah. It's always something we grow, learn and grow, and you know, something interesting is sometimes we lean on our coaches a lot to give professional development. And need to be developed too. Our principals need to be developed as well. Like we want to work to have professional development for all. So you know, that continuous priority to get on the forefront from our department at least is what needs to happen. Okay.
Who's coaching the coaches? I mean, who's?
So through the Wit and Wisdom implementation, we have a consultant from Rivet Consultings that come in and I meet with her every other week and we meet monthly with the coaches. They're considering doing some coaching, some training in letters and some additional for the reading coaches. And so there's different ways to provide that. So yeah.
That's one of the most important ways,
What's that?
which is every week you meet with them, and you're the supervisor, and you're the greatest.
I provide some professional.
Yeah. Our top person worked for them.
Yeah, our coaches, we have good coaches.
Yeah.
Thank you. for what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yes. I have weekly meetings with a lot of people. So our priorities in curriculum, what we're already doing, these slides are a lot. I probably could have made them longer. We're doing a lot in curriculum. We have annual reviews. Very happy to say that we have STAR 360 in grades 1 through 12 this year. We can follow the same measurement tool all the way through high school and watch over the time, we'll watch students' growth. I'm very excited about that. We are at full implementation of Wit and Wisdom, meaning every classroom is teaching that in K-5. As you know, teachers are at different stages of that, whether it's their first year or their third year, but they are, everyone is on board. We have Math and Focus. Our focus this year, we're not changing the curriculum right now, but we are really going to hone in on instructional practices, particularly engagement strategies and rigor, to make sure that we have a strong implementation of Math and Focus. At O'Malley, we have Amplify ELA within full implementation, meaning this is our first full year of every ELA teacher teaching that. Amplify Desmos, we are just beginning the full implementation. We adopted that earlier this year, and we are in midst of really diving into the curriculum and making sure that teachers are fully trained in it. So we still have a lot of training as far as that area, but we do have a good teacher on board. At the high school, we are strengthening Tier 1 through the focus of culturally responsive practices that you've heard Principal Cook talk about the 9 chunk chew review. That's the instructional model here at Gloucester High School to make sure that students are really actively thinking and doing the heavy lifting. And then we are also developing a guideline for EL services. So what kind of model, how are we supporting our EL students? That's partly through the newcomer curriculum pilot. It's also to know when to push into a classroom to support an EL student and when to maybe pull them out. So those newcomers might make more sense to pull them out and really give them that vocabulary and the language. But if they're further along in their language acquisition, it might be more effective to push into the tier one instruction to provide support so that they can be in the classroom with their peers more. So we are developing guidelines as far as that is concerned. For instruction, we have strong coaching, we have the curriculum coordinator, our new teacher induction and peer mentoring program we have, that was expanded this year. Might have expanded it we expanded to 5 days, I think we're gonna shrink it down to 3.
Wasn't it 3?
2. It was 3,
Yeah.
we expanded it this year, but we added the middle school and high school, which is amazing, and we will continue that. But the elementary was stretched out more, partly because we had a full day of wit and wisdom, a full day for geos, and then a full day for math.
Yeah.
So we'll shrink that down. But we'll continue to improve that. We have ILT at almost every school. Some of the smaller elementary schools rely on their child study team to do the work of an ILT. But we do have ILTs, instructional leadership teams, at all grade levels. We have evaluation of observation of active engagement at different, means different in different places. An example of that is wit and wisdom. We have a walkthrough tool of looking for what engagement strategies they're they're using. We have some increased student support, after school tutoring, summer academies at all levels currently. And we are working on, I mentioned it briefly before, that self-assessment of multi-tiered systems of support. Because that's at different places in different buildings and at different grade levels of how we provide that tier 2 or tier 3 instruction. So we want to solidify that across the district. And for professional development, we have ongoing PD and literacy, math, special education, sheltered English immersion, universal design for learning. We have Katie Novak, who is the guru in that, coming in February to O'Malley to speak to the entire staff. We are working on culturally responsive teaching, social emotional learning, and using assessments to adjust practice. So that's diving into the data and knowing how to create interventions and that will better meet the needs of students. We have targeted PD in lesson design and instructional practice. As an example of this is at O'Malley is very much looking at the lesson objective and how that affects what is being taught and what the students are producing in order to show their knowledge of the objective of the lesson. So that's just one small area of instructional practice that they're diving into, and that will broaden as they go forward. We have spring and summer book studies and PLCs to support and for support and embedded coaching through our coaching months. So those are all the many things that we're already doing for professional development. To go further,
Like, how can we go further?
I know, but we can. We will continue training and coaching for the implementation of the new curriculum. And we'll be at different stages. So this year, an example of that is Amplify ELA. We are very much pushing that the curriculum is taught to fidelity for the full year before we make adjustments. We need to know what we're teaching before we make any adjustments. But then moving forward next year, we might look at the data and the implementation, and if there are lessons that can be condensed, or if we need to spend more time on an area, we're going to do that together as a district, or in that case as a school, so that a curriculum taught in this classroom is similar to that classroom, that makes it more equitable. So we're going to make those decisions to any particular changes together as a team and be very thoughtful. So that moving forward, that we will be doing that. We have not completed our pilot for the newcomer EL curriculum. We will complete that prior to the end of the school year. So next year, we'll be doing some training and implementation on whichever of those two programs that we select.
Is that the program that's starting in February?
So the
That-
program
that was talked
in February is a service delivery model.
Okay.
So I'm talking about the curriculum, meaning the actual like textbook that they will use within that model.
So that doesn't come till next year?
So we have 2 in the district now that we're piloting.
2 classes?
No, 2 of the curriculums.
2 of the curriculums?
Yes, one's through Vista and one is through Continental
At
Press.
every
K to 12.
K to 12?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
and we're having different, so it's interesting, it's too soon to tell, but the secondary is liking one more than the elementary. And then it would be great if it was continuous, but one curriculum might be better fitted.
Right.
Fit better for it, right, so we're gonna make that decision on what it is, in by the end of the school year. But they will be using the piloted materials within that program, so they have 2 programs to use, and if Katina is amazing, and she will have a wonderful impression of both of them. As well, all of our EL teachers. It's the service delivery model that they're piloting.
And you said 2 will get piloted, right?
Yes, one's through Vista, it's. Let's go and one's get ready. One's through Vista and one is through Contact. So we also will analyze and plan for the implementation. So this is new. It's just, I just posted for a curriculum review team for the comprehensive health and physical education curriculum. Massachusetts just revised, it came out this past October. A lot of the things we are doing, some things we are not. We might be doing things that aren't on there. So I have posted for a committee to review the curriculum. And the idea this year is to just get a sense of where we are. We're gonna take a dipstick of where we are, what we need. And it would be wonderful if we could find something to put in place next year, but with any curriculum adoption, I'm not gonna know that till like, it might take longer. But we are starting the process of reviewing that new curriculum that came out from the state of Massachusetts and making committee level decisions on where we're going.
Do you have difficulty in getting committees to form? Or do you feel the
So far, I need a few more people for this particular committee. Through grant money, I'm able to pay for committees, hourly, that helps.
Yeah.
And I've asked a few people, I really need your opinion on this, and they'll come on. I usually can get people on the committees. Sometimes I try to go and tell them they're not really, you really need to be on this.
Right.
But, so far, the committees have been awful. I've almost too many committees, but I have a lot of committees and they're all full, so that's
There's
good.
a lot going on in the
Yeah.
district, so I
Yeah.
can see why.
Yeah, so far, this committee is almost full. I probably will nudge it 1 or 2 more. Just to make sure every level is represented. For this particular committee, I would like representation from physical education teachers, health teachers, also adjustment counselors, because there's some curriculum that affects them. And Jeff Parker is offered to be represent the nurses as far as for that, so.
We haven't heard from Jeff in a while. We used to talk to him every week.
That's a good thing. We like Jeff a lot. That's a good thing.
That's a good thing, I think.
I know, it dawned on me like, wow, we don't hear from
He's
Jeff
still
anymore.
here, and he's, yeah. So, so that committee's forming. Instruction, I mentioned earlier, going through the self-assessment, and a long-term goal is to develop and implement a consistent MTSS model through the district. I would love to have in one place, if you are getting tier 1, this is the instruction for elementary. If you need tier 2, here are some resources that we use at Gloucester Public Schools, because we've vetted them and we know that they support our instruction. And if you're in tier 3, the same thing. That's going to be a long way off, but it's certainly, we're taking steps.
When you say long,
It'll be a few years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Not 10 years.
No. And we will continue to focus on instructional practices to promote student engagement and rigor. And then that EL guideline that I just kind of mentioned that we're developing this year, once it settles, I'll present, we'll share. And then for professional development, in addition to the wide range of professional development opportunities from across the district, we will continue to work on inclusive practices and the MTSS model. We will continue to strengthen instructional practices with a focus on student engagement and rigor. That's my new thing, that really, they have to be
Read it like
engaged.
5 times tonight. I'm
Yes.
excited.
They have to be, the students have to be engaged, and we have to have high standards for every student. And further development of the new teacher academy for all grade levels. So I'm gonna I mentioned that a little bit. I'm gonna tweak it down so that it's really effective. So it had a good start this year. We're gonna continue to improve on that. And then, as I said, I was gonna end with, just our overall, our approach to learning, professional learning and our intent, for basic principles is that professional learning improves instruction and practice. So when we learn new things, it's gonna help our students by improving instruction and practice. Professional learning is linked to the school, district and the district and school priority goals. So any professional development we're putting in front of our staff needs to link to what our goals for our schools and our district, a plan for ongoing improvement. And it builds over time. So it takes a while. So we're gonna start, at the beginning and, the instructional practices, we're starting with the learning objective. We'll get to more parts of it, right? But we're gonna start and we're gonna build over time. And it means learning from each other. We have such tremendous teachers and leaders and paraprofessionals and staff in our district that days like November 7th, where they can step up and be a leader and teach. I want to value that because we have a lot of wonderful resources right here in Gloucester, and to elevate them and have our in-house experts really step up and become leaders is critical to our approach. If that was a whole lot.
It is a lot. Can we get this sent to us?
Yeah, totally, absolutely. We're just putting some of this final piece on today, so, yeah.
I just want to be able to
And you'll share
reflect
with-
on it
Yep.
tomorrow.
Yep,
Yeah.
we share with the whole committee.
Absolutely.
A lot.
That is a lot.
It's all good, though. It's a lot. Okay,
Good stuff, thank
so
you.
that's curriculum and professional development priorities.
This is the, this is the end.
Yeah.
This is, it really, I mean,
Motivation.
no, it's what helps us get better at what we're trying to do. And especially these four pieces here in terms of the attention and our approach, there's some key pieces here. One, we try to make it focused and we can focus it more, and we'll need to as we go forward, go deeper in some places and let some other ones, it's collaborative, okay, as Amy's described, so it goes development curriculum, professional development, where other, our folks are teaching our other folks, so it's collaborative, it's super huge, because that helps it make it more effective, and then it's also, we'll continue. We're not just doing a little bit here and moving on to the next thing. So it's without, and this is stuff that's been built here for a while. Greg Bob was instrumental at building this approach. We're trying to continue it. So but it really is, our folks learning to get better at their work. So we continue to learn how to do things better is what will drive improvement. Will help improvement happen. It helps make improvement happen. That's why I said, trying to explain that when you're on the engine, but it's what fuels us getting better. Otherwise, we're just talking with them.
Right.
I wrote down the word intentional, like it seems intentional. A lot of it's intentional. That's what we need. We appreciate it.
I just feel like we're on a great momentum right now. All the schools, you can finally say all that we targeted the weaknesses and are attacking and it's just impressive. I would say since the pandemic, we've done well as far as identifying, grabbing on, giving support.
Appreciate that a lot must come from you, because you've been here, longer than any of us in the room, you've seen the work's been happening. So thank you very much.
It's exciting and all our staff should be commended.
All right, that's the end of the first meeting. The second half of the meeting is the regular meeting.
Take a 2-minute break.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the
We'll
rest of
keep
it,
that live.
yeah,
We're
that's
just
fine.
gonna take a 2-minute break.
Yeah, the rest of it should go pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
Great job.
Actually, I have two.
Are these still working?
Yeah, just-
Once you get sure of it.
oh, you don't.
Now, yeah, it's scroll up on YouTube.
You guys hired me for something, and then,
You.
You hear my call. Ready?
sorry.
Okay.
I just didn't.
No worries.
All
Okay.
right, we are on to special education tuition and transportation, or are we starting?
Yep.
Different,
No, we're starting with special ed tuition
okay?
as we have been doing each month. So let's go to the next slide.
Thank you, Gary.
This, we have, as we have in December, we have some good news that it has in January, that it is finally stabilized. And we had no increases in tuition expense in January.
I saw that and I thought it might be a typo. I was like, nothing, zero.
Now, for the record, remember, the part of December, a little bit of January isn't very old, and part of December we were shut down, so. But still, it's
Yeah.
positive, okay?
January worries me though. That seems to be the month, like they even mentioned it earlier, that we get more students come to our district.
Right, so if
January
you
seems
have,
to be that
right, so
early
it
month.
could be move-ins, right,
Yeah.
but some of these are moving, some of them aren't, but anyway, just so, I don't wanna
take away a thunder.
Yeah, no, that's good, it's better than what it could be.
It's better than what it was in November or
Yeah.
December, yeah.
Yeah.
Where we had that increase of 400,000. So let's move on to the next slide. And again, no increase in tuition or transportation. Our fund balance and circuit breaker staying steady. And the rest of this slide has not changed from the last time you saw it. So that is good news. Let's move on to the next.
Before we do,
Sure.
where you said, transportation reimbursement was prorated from 75 to 57, this may be increased, when will we know if that gets increased?
Okay, yes, thank you for mentioning that. So I was at a webinar on circuit breaker relief. And a question from the audience was to the director of finance at DESI was, is there any potential increase from the 57% in the remaining months of the fiscal year? And he said, we don't know at this point.
Okay,
So that there is a possibility,
and how long ago was that?
that was like the beginning of the month.
So it was before the governor announced cuts.
Yeah,
Just trying to get a
yeah.
full picture, thank you.
So there's potential, not saying that there will
Yeah.
be. Thank you for bringing that up. Now I wanted to spend some time on circuit breaker program. In the past, we had talked exclusively about the year-end claims. But there's also relief claims, 2 of them, and 1 is new this year. The other one, which is the extraordinary relief, that is, you need to qualify for that and have claims over 25%. And we'll get more into the nitty-gritty about that in the next slide. So the key metric, so what we're going to do is, do we qualify for the extraordinary relief and the new reserve relief program? And the key metric is the change from FY23 to FY24. In order to, the measurement of the change is for student tuition costs to exceed per student $51,721. So we don't start counting until the district has spent $51,721
Per student.
per student. So if we paid out $48,000 for the student, we receive no benefit. Okay. The amount eligible is therefore above the $51,721. A district is eligible to be reimbursed if the net change exceed a couple of thresholds that we'll see on the next slide.
But you're not getting reimbursed for anything short of 51, whatever.
Yes, there's no circuit breaker on the year-end claims, no. And nothing in the relief claims. You have to exceed threshold of $51,721. Now that number increases each and every year.
And that's just for circuit breaker reimbursement, okay? Potential circuit breaker reimbursement.
Yeah.
What we're talking about now is the relief that could happen for us, okay? And then what Gary's explaining is that's comparing what was above 51,000 last year for a student to what's above 51,000 this year for a student. Okay, or really for all students. Okay?
Yeah.
If that difference is high enough, they were eligible for this relief. Okay, which would come this year, but Gary will explain that now.
And I don't want to slow you down at all, Gary.
Oh, no,
I'm just trying to make sure I understand that.
sure.
The relief is between the 51, whatever it was, and whatever that number, that final number is. It's not like, oh, you went over 51, whatever. You qualify for total relief now, correct?
Yeah, let me just distinguish.
That would mean every child would be getting over 51.
Let's say an example is that we spent 70,721. So what would be eligible on the year-end claim would be the 70,721 minus the 51,721. And then we multiply that by 75%.
But is that with the extraordinary relief or
No,
the
that's-
reserve relief?
That's just year-end claim.
It's circuit breaker.
Just
It's just circuit
circuit
breaker.
breaker.
Burials are just circuit.
Yeah, that's the one you know of.
Okay.
Now we're talking about two new ones. And the first one is extraordinary relief. And that has been, available each and every year, but the kicker is that the district has to spend greater than 25% from FY '23 to FY '24. And so we only count the monies in excess of the 51,721. So all the students that exceed that number, we look at that total and compare it to FY '23. Yeah. And are we over the 25%? Guess what? This year we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you put the numbers on it, is if you use the same example, you have that 71,000 we talked about a moment ago. Or FY '23, so we have 20,000 above the threshold, the $1,000 threshold. So what you need for FY '24 is not 70,000, you need 70,000 plus 25%, so that's another 5,000. If you're at 80,000 for that child, then you qualify for extraordinary relief. If you're still at 72,000, or 73,000 for that child, the gap is only $2,000.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you don't qualify for extraordinary relief.
So that is historically, that is a big, a tall bar.
High threshold.
High threshold to exceed.
Yeah.
So this year, because, we've been talking about how the claims have increased substantially, this year we're qualifying.
Well, what makes me take a step back, right? This sounds like great news, but then it's like, okay, we are eligible. But like, what are we eligible for? And how much money is left in that pot? Because, we're not the only school district that's eligible.
Yes.
So
So
we'll talk about.
I don't want to get too
those.
excited about it.
Yeah, we don't want you to get too excited.
I think it's great that it puts us in the eligibility category, but
Well-
what does that translate to dollars and assistance, knowing that the cost of educating is increasing for
Right.
everyone, right?
Well, it's not great that we're here,
Right.
because that means we
We're
spent
spending a lot.
a lot of money. But there is some relief. And now the next relief, this is new this year. Is that you have to exceed that over the threshold of 51,721. You have to have 7.5% above. So it's a lower bar, right? But you also have to have that over the 7.5%, then you have to look at that amount and compare it to net school spending. And if you're over 0.005 of net school spending, then you are eligible. So that's two bars to overcome. We qualify for that as well.
So this is a fund that's been legislative and approved? So
Yes.
There's a known amount for these
Yes.
reliefs,
There's a known amount.
There's no
for reimbursement, but not to who?
But there's no total amount, and we know how to make the calculations, because as you see down here, so, for extraordinary relief, we're eligible
Okay, yeah.
for $270,000. For reserve relief, we're eligible for $130,000. we don't know yet how much of those we'll get.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know, I mean, we will find out in May of 2024. So later this fiscal year, we'll find out. And again, it's dependent upon how many districts have filed claims and are eligible, and how much money do they have set aside to pay these relief claims. So of the two, the extraordinary relief and the reserve relief, I'm more excited about the extraordinary relief because the reserve relief, if we did get any kind of funding, we get it this fiscal year, but then it subtracts from our year-end claim. So the net effect is zero. So the state has give it and then take it. And all that does is help with cash flow.
Yeah.
It doesn't help the bottom line. So we'll find out. I just wanted to let everybody know of these two relief opportunities that were eligible with the potential. And then we'll find out later on if we'll receive any money from those.
So if we receive money, it's just reduced in the circuit breaker next year,
Just
just for 1 year,
just the reserve relief.
just the reserve review.
The extraordinary is not, that is additional money.
Is it, do you know if it's reduced dollar for dollar? Like if we get 130,000,
Yeah, it's reduced dollar per dollar.
so. Okay. Nothing to get excited about, because then we'll just be looking for the money next year.
We get a little excited, not too excited.
Yeah, don't get too excited on the second one.
Right,
If we get any money from extraordinary relief, that will help, and that is real money.
but it helps us this year, because we'll get the money this year, but it's deducted from next
Right.
year, so it hurts us next year.
Right. Just the reserve
Just the
relief.
reserve relief.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's just
kind of
a
like,
budget. It's a budget issue. It's not even a gift. It's not a gift. It's not a help. It's a when do you want your money, this year or next year?
Yeah,
true, that's very true.
So
yeah, we're just,
what's the benefit of it
Our financial statements will look better.
this year?
Well,
Not
I
next year.
think it's a question of when do we need the money,
Exactly.
you know, and we could, does it benefit us to get it this year?
Yeah.
And then we apply for this year. It may not, but you know, these folks will figure that out.
And is that relief that comes straight to the district, or does it go on the cherry sheet to the city and?
well, that's straight to, well, it goes to the city. All monies go to the city, but this is in our revolving fund. We have
So
circuit
we have
breaker,
direct access to it.
yeah,
Like
direct
all
access.
circuit breaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's not like local aid.
Okay,
So that is,
that's helpful.
any questions on that?
No, I don't. You?
Okay,
All right.
go to the calendar and you want to take
Yeah,
it?
I'll take this, yep.
Yeah.
So just a couple of things here, we're trying to, February 13th is when the next, is when the February BNF subcommittee is scheduled for February 13th, okay? There's a conflict on that date, okay? I think, right, Melissa?
Yes,
So,
that and April 9th.
April 9th, okay, let's do this one now, we'll, April 9th later, you guys write down April 9th, yeah, shift that too. So,
They're
what I'd like to
both
propose
Tuesday,
is, so the most important piece of that BNF meeting, and it's scheduled for February 14th, is a presentation of the budget.
but
Okay?
To the school committee?
Yeah, to the BNF, that was for BNF. What I would suggest is we move that presentation itself, just that presentation, to the full school committee meeting the next day. February 14th.
Exactly. I was gonna say, doing that twice within a day
Right, yeah.
isn't that helpful, I don't think,
Yeah.
to the committee as a whole.
And then, so, then the question is, then there's other business of the BNF subcommittee agenda, okay, our regular business, and should we move that to either February 15th, the Thursday, just a subcommittee, or we can move after vacation, I think Tuesday the 27th. So we're splitting the meeting, okay, you've got the regular business plus the budget. What was gonna happen on the 13th was the regular business plus the budget presentation. What I'm suggesting is we move the budget presentation to February 14th, school committee meeting, we find another date for the rest of the regular business of that month.
But my first reaction to that is
Yeah.
trying to be helpful, not
Yeah.
confuse it, is what exactly is our regular business gonna be? Is it getting the update on the special education and the out of district that we have every month? But is there others, or is that a quick meeting we can have before the school committee meeting
Oh,
and not add another day? Because it doesn't seem like much should be developing.
yeah, no, I think,
Now and then, it's just
transfer,
a thought.
definitely transfer, the typical business transfers, that's for sure.
Right,
Gary, any thoughts on that, about whether we
Yeah,
do a
I-
shorter meeting just before school committee?
Yeah, I have some thoughts.
Okay.
So I like the fact of moving it before the school committee meeting so that we can not add another night. But I also, you requested earlier today, a walk, the
budget,
budget, year-to-date for FY '24.
yeah, I just need to know what I'm talking about when people are asking me questions, and these are people that
Yeah.
need answers.
That'd be a perfect opportunity to go through
Okay,
that on that day.
okay,
Would that
that's
work?
helpful, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll do the report plus the analysis.
But wait, so what day are we talking about? So
14th,
the 14th, which
yeah.
is,
but we have to start like at like 5:30. It's
Yeah.
6:30 regular meeting,
yeah,
we start at 5:30, I think, I mean.
Yeah.
We do transfers and you do the budget of the FY '24 year to date.
Yeah.
Not much else, right?
We won't have transfers.
That's on the
until the end of the
14th,
month.
Valentine's
So we're
Day.
not gonna have all of our
Well,
transfers or.
You
any
thought
of the
January
January
transfers?
transfers.
January transfers.
Got it.
Yeah, let's do those two items then. Good
I'm
with
just
everyone?
saying how it's Valentine's Day, so I have to tell my husband
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
spending Valentine's
Yeah,
Day with
yeah.
Bill
I've
Melvin.
given up on that.
My neighbor.
So does
That works for
5:30
you.
on the 14th work for both of you?
It will work for me. Is that enough time, an hour?
We're gonna make enough time, yeah.
Okay,
All right. It is-
all right, so the 13th is changed to the 14th at 5:30.
Okay.
And then is there a way to change April 9th?
What day is April?
That is a Tuesday as well. That's why I'm asking. It's the second Tuesday of the month. One day I'm not available every month.
Oh, so, come on,
Do we want,
budget, we have a budget, April. Can you pull up the budget calendar? Full budget calendar?
I mean, the 8th is the Monday before.
So, but the April 9th on Tuesday, I mean, it's not the regular meeting, it must be something. is
It's
it-
for me, so I have a conflict the second
No, but I'm
Tuesday.
wondering why we have a meeting scheduled on Tuesday. April
We have it
9th.
on the 10th.
Oh,
we have a school committee on the 10th,
We
right?
do, figured out.
Well, can we do, the 8th?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If we can do that Monday. Available Mondays.
Why the other? That's because the 10th, we couldn't do it on the 10th. Because the 10th is a school committee meeting.
The 10th is a regular school committee. meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we didn't put it on the 10th.
Okay, so when do you want to, when do you want to put it?
Can you do it on the 8th? Which is Monday.
What's that? The 8th, Monday.
Yeah, can we do that?
Thursday before.
I could probably do the Monday. I mean, I'm supposed to be committing to something, but I can take a night off. So on Monday nights, but this is kind of a one free night, but put it down for the Monday night.
Okay.
April 8th?
Sarah, all right with you?
Thank
Yeah.
you very much. And that's at 5?
Yes.
So April 9th is moved to April 8th.
Yeah. That helps me tremendously. Okay. We can just report that out in school committee meeting.
Yeah, and I'll tell Kelly so she's got the dates.
Budget transfers, looks like we have one.
Yes. Okay, so this is a transfer, we talked about this transfer last month. And the reason why it's on again is the last month, it was actually November of 2022. So we had the wrong year. So this is
On the transfer.
on the transfer last month.
Okay,
This is the right year. November, and it happened in December. And it's the contracted services to the YMCA for noon supervisors. We talked about that last time. Noon supervisors, we don't know how many we're gonna need. It's dependent upon the, how many people we can hire internally, so.
so I'll make a motion that we recommend to the full school committee to approve the budget transfer in the amount of $57,000 from the salary / tutor account to contracted services. Reason being to pay for new supervisor contracts contracted with the YMCA.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the vote carries.
Okay, the next item is building use. And, so we looked at, I worked with Kelly. Kelly Coy. And, here's all the organizations that we charge this fiscal year. So. again,
But it's very specific, it's a high use local youth organizations.
these are all
Yeah.
I use.
So just the ones who get the, you know, price reduction because, there's, you know, there's so much use.
And the total is under 10,000.
Has
But-
there been any conversation between the administration and DPW since we last met?
No.
So, I'll just report that I reached out to Mike Hale just to see what information I could get, if any. And this is specifically word for word what he said. I asked about, does the city of Gloucester through the DPW charge youth sports teams for, rental fees for the fields?
The fields.
And his response was DPW charges for the rink for non-school teams and for Newell Stadium rentals. Youth sports at Newell Stadium only, he charges $30 per hour, and that is to cover for staff, meaning custodian. We charge no other fees for city school fields for youth groups. School department, if a building fee, use fee is charged, that is decided by the administration, not the DPW. We do tack on a custodial fee when applicable. So the only fee the city is receiving for youth sports is $30 per hour at Newell Stadium only, and that's if a custodian or staff is required.
In the rink, in the rink, you didn't mention the rink as well?
He charged the rink, yeah, they say they charge for the rink, I put that as a separate issue, I don't know. The rink is separate to me, but he doesn't charge for student, teams.
You charge for youth ones, not school.
Yeah, not school.
Yeah, so, you
Yeah.
know.
So they
Cape Ann
are
hockey-
charging at the rink,
Like Cape Ann hockey, which is the closest thing we have this, you charge
Yeah.
for. You
Yeah.
charge, right?
so. With that being said, I know we had discussed, so I think there was about $10,000 revenue coming in, and this revenue goes to the city and does not stay in the school budget.
In the MOU with the DPW, it says that those fees should go to us. Okay, it's very clear, it's clearly worded.
But we don't have an MOU.
Well, we do have an MOU, we do, it's old,
In practice.
okay?
Yeah.
We're trying to revise it, and then, you know, as you know, I've been working with both the director of DPW and state legal counsel. So, you know, and in that draft, it's still in there, so, no.
But currently, the money, it's not going into our budget. Or is it?
We have not had the practice of doing that.
Yeah.
Now, I inherited that practice, not knowing that the MOA is something completely different. Okay, so we should have been, and we should, and we could.
My feeling, so I did a little more research today, when we were talking about the fees schedule last year, when we approved this whole building use policy, I printed off probably 20 different building use fees from around the state, just to get an idea on
Yeah.
language and what they're doing. And I disposed of all those, I didn't keep them, 'cause I cleaned out my office a little bit at home.
Mhm.
And just briefly today, I looked at Manchester, Essex, I looked at Peabody and looked at Salem and Amesbury. Only because I looked at communities that have their building use information up online, right? I was
Right.
just Googled it and who
Yeah.
has it available, like
Okay.
Beverly, I was trying to get Beverly, I couldn't find their fee schedule to
Okay.
save my life. So I know, I come to this conversation where we are now today, knowing what I know, that I would prefer not to charge the youth fees and do exactly what the city of Gloucester is doing, which is charging for staff. If things change, then we change, but I think it's more important to be equitable. I know you say the rink is being charged, I look at that different for some reason, I just think the rink is so complicated with their charges over there, keeping ice and things like that. So I don't look at the rink as necessarily an example. And the fact that it is less than $10,000 and the fact that it is not impacting our budget right now, today as we speak. I would like us to consider waiving building use fees with the exception of the actual cost of the staff that's required for the school.
You're, just to clarify, you're saying youth organizations,
Gloucester
youth,
organizations.
so it's Gloucester Youth Organizations.
In some, and if we need to take it further, we can, in a lot of communities, they decide if the community-based youth sports is 90% or higher with residency. I understand that theory, right? If we have a youth Gloucester team, we're not like Manchester, Essex that combine, but we do have a few students, I think, that are in our youth programs that may not be Gloucester. But I would guess, and I'm guessing, that a majority of our youth teams are primarily Gloucester students and Gloucester kids, whether they're homeschooled or not. So I feel comfortable just waiving the fee for now, but if we find that there's concerns, we can always bring it back. That's where I'm at today.
So we have on this list. Cape Ann basketball, Cape Ann youth wrestling. Gloucester boys travel, Cape Ann Special Olympics, Cape Ann Special Olympics. So which of those are Gloucester organizations?
All of those.
All of them, yeah.
The basketball on both the boys and the girls side. Cape Ann basketball games, those are Saturday. Girls youth basketball, all Gloucester students. The top one.
Okay, got that.
Cape Ann basketball practice, that would be the boys, I think, practice over there, the boys youth program. I know of one Rockport kid that's in that program, the rest are all Gloucester kids. Cape Ann youth wrestling, I do not, assuming that, again, I'm assuming it's 90% Gloucester kids. Cape Ann basketball games at O'Malley, that's the girls where they play on Saturdays, ties into that Gloucester youth basketball at the top, same thing. Paying for the janitors there. Gloucester boys travel, but same as the second one, they play their games here at the high school, so that's a janitorial fee. Special Olympics,
So I can comment on that a little bit. I know Gloucester students that are in our current program, the one that goes to age 22, are in this, that play in the Special Olympics. I'm sure we don't have enough to make the whole team, but come on, Special Olympics, right?
Right.
I don't. It's a nonprofit. It's a good feel to know that they want to be here and that they're actually providing the program that they are.
So I have another question. Now do we charge in your motion? The application fee we've been charging, does that still apply?
I would say yes,
Yeah, I
because you need to review it, right? Someone's taken the time to look at it and know who they're renting to and making sure that the custodian is in place. I'm okay with what is it, $100,
$50.
$50, even better. I would say yes to an application fee for everybody,
Okay.
but then the actual fee itself.
yeah, I mean, I think, my issue has always been the commonality between the city and the schools. There's just too much. If you use a school facility, you're gonna get charged. If you use a field, you're not gonna get charged. And I think that's causing some angst and some issues.
And another angst issue is, I don't know if you saw it on social media anywhere, is the wrestling team was putting out that they need mats. Because evidently the mats that they're using are old, probably. And a lot of community members were like, well, why isn't the school buying them mats, right? So it seems like, I don't know if it's a glitch on our part, but if they have to provide mats, it makes me feel better knowing that they're not paying a fee so that they can buy the things, the equipment that they need to support those programs. I mean, if anything, anyone knows the city of Gloucester, we need sports programs. There's not much to do in this community compared to other communities because we're so isolated. That I just wanna feel good about youth kids being able to get what they need, go and be with friends and do the best they can, and I just think at this point, knowing the city does not charge, that we should be consistent with the city. Subject to change if we find out that there's a problem down the road that we weren't aware of, or expenses that we may incur.
And these programs, like the basketball program, they've been in the schools for years. It's not like they just started practicing playing games in the schools.
Right,
So
these aren't new,
they're
Right.
not new.
they've established.
Established
Tradition.
programs. Keep playing Special Olympics, they've been involved in a long time.
So, you wanna make a motion?
Yeah, make a motion that,
Recommend,
for, to the full school committee. That we make a motion that we, bring this to the full school committee with the elimination of user fees. Subject, do we want to say subject to
No.
change? No?
we know it.
So,
Paula, can you
So
say
building use fees
building use fees?
Or what?
Yeah,
for youth sports, youth groups,
Gloucester-based,
Gloucester
Gloucester-based sports groups. Youth
Well-
groups.
So would you consider Cape Ann Gloucester based?
That's what I asked you.
Well, so let's say Gloucester and
So,
Cape Ann based.
let me wait. This is not my motion, okay? This is not my
So, okay,
recommendation. You guys have to say.
Right.
Yeah.
so
Okay.
to make it simplified, we have, is this the list of all that we're charging from
Yes.
this year?
yes.
Is there, do you know if there's any groups that aren't on this list that we have charged from in the past?
like the Girl Scouts.
No, we didn't charge the Girl Scouts.
And PTOs and things like that, we don't charge.
We don't charge.
Right,
So the motion would be that we waive, build and use fees.
Yep.
For youth sports,
can you say Gloucester?
Gloucester youth sports and Cape Ann youth sports
Yeah,
and Special Olympics. With the exception or, noting that they pay custodial fees and the application fees.
Yeah. So,
well, we do charge,
So for example,
we do charge the,
Yeah. so there's a youth organization, Gloucester-based, that wants to use the auditorium.
yes,
It needs lighting and needs sound. We're gonna charge them for staff.
They, say that again?
They need lighting and sound.
yeah,
Right?
so
They would have to pay for staff,
yeah.
yeah.
Or if the youth organization wants to use the cafeteria kitchen,
They have to pay for
they
staff.
have to pay the food service worker.
The only thing that's being waived is the building use fee. Not the application, not the custodian, not the staff, not anyone that
Yeah.
needs to be hired.
Okay,
It's just the use of
building
the
use,
facility
building
only.
fee only. Okay, I just want to be
Yeah,
crystal clear.
no, I understand. We want it to
What do you
be
want?
crystal clear and consistent with the current practices
Right.
that are going on. Knowing we may be talking about this again at some point
Yeah.
if we need to, but for now,
Right,
we need to put an end to all the
chat,
chatter that it's inequitable.
So make a motion that the building use fee is waived for Gloucester Youth Sports, Cape Ann Youth Sports, and Special Olympics.
Second, we're recommending to the school.
We're recommending the full school. Second that.
I did. Any further discussion? I did this last time with somebody, that's why I'm laughing. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The vote carries. Let's see what the committee has to say tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Not tomorrow night.
Yeah,
Oh,
next week.
Can we do,
Effective what?
next school committee meeting? Because tomorrow's a little quick to get.
Wait, first of all, tomorrow is not, no meeting tomorrow.
There'll be,
Oh, Thursday.
Oh, yeah, tomorrow Thursday. Sorry, so it would be next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, yeah.
But let me ask you this, has everyone paid until now, like,
Folks, I would do this next year, okay?
Yeah. not waited too long from the last meeting?
Okay, I mean, so
So it's
what are we doing for folks for the remainder of the
going
year?
forward, once we approve
Going
it.
forward,
Going forward,
Okay,
once we
I-
approve
I
it,
wanna
going
be clear.
forward, not going backwards,
okay.
not
It's
reversing.
it's effective on the date you pass it,
It's effective on the day that full committee
passes it.
passes it.
So, you know, if they used it prior, then we're charging prior to the effective date.
Yeah. Wait.
It'll be effective the date that we approve it at the school
So-
committee level, so whoever's paid, that stays.
Okay.
But effective that date going forward, any application that comes forward,
When
there'll
they
be no
pay for the
fee.
full year,
Yep.
they pay for the full year.
Yep,
We're not refunding.
nope.
Okay.
We're not creating issues within any office here,
We'll be fine.
but just going forward, we know it will catch up. That we're doing as of, what is next week, January 20 something,
24,
there will no longer be a fee charged,
24, or whatever.
whatever it is next week. If the committee
Meetings on
approves
the
it.
24th.
We're not going backwards, we're not reimbursing, we're not changing anything we've done. It'll be just effective January, whatever that date is going forward.
Right.
When you receive an application, you know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And if anyone has anything to say, we can say the effective date is that date. You know, things
It-
change, laws change all the time, regulations change, it's effective that date.
It's clear if it's just saying it for applications received
Received.
Yeah. after or on the effective date, which is
The date.
January 24th.
Whatever the date is.
Well, the meeting's on the 24th.
Is it?
It's.
So
for-
any application you get, if it passes, any application you get January 25th, you know, there's no fee.
Right.
If they applied on January 23rd, you know there's a fee,
Okay.
so
I,
keep it simple.
If it passes.
If it
If
passes,
it passes. It's there, right? Still got to vote.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, great.
all right, thank you.
okay,
That's all we
that's
have.
all we have. Excellent, okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
There is, on the motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, vote carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A lot of good conversations tonight.
Very, very.
The staff was very impressive. What's going on in the school is very impressive.